Hello, everyone, and welcome back to 2A News with Craig DeLuz. I am your host, Craig DeLuz, and we're talking all guns, all the gun time, talking about firearms policy, politics, culture, media, you name it. We're talking about guns. We're going to have a good time doing so. Today's show, I have a good friend, someone who I've known for quite a while now, who's very, very active, not just in the media relating to the Second Amendment, but in advocacy as well. And he wrote a piece over at AmmoLand that I wanted to share with you. I wanted to talk with him a little bit about, and it has to do with the ATF revised machine gun definition. And kind of his perspective that, well, he doesn't think that the revised definition goes far enough. So I want to go ahead and kind of have him on board to kind of talk a little bit about it. And with that, let me welcome to the program, Mr. John Crump.
Thank you for having me, Craig. I
Well, it's a
appreciate it.
pleasure to have you here, sir. Very, 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 very much. So tell me exactly what this rule change does, and then why you don't think it goes far enough.
Okay, back in the original Trump administration, they passed the uh, rule to redefine bump stocks as machine guns. And as we know, in the Cargill case, the Supreme Court said that they cannot do that. It went too far. So we expected the rule to roll it back to pre 2018 standards where it's all about the rate of not the rate of fire, but a single function of the trigger. And they did roll it back. They removed the stuff about bump stocks, but they kept a couple things from the new rule in there, including expanding it to frames and receivers. Now, that might not seem like a big deal right now, but when we get a less friendly ATF in office, they can use that to start banning parts, kits, and everything else. And I think that will be exploited in the future by the left leaning administration that comes in that hates guns because they're going to take a mile when they should only take an inch.
That's an excellent point. And a lot of folks who I'm talking about who are like, they're like, well, but no, but this administration. I'm like, look, we're not always going to have a friendly administration. We're not always going to have a friendly ATF. We need to start doing things that not just help fix things now, but will make things work in future administrations.
Yeah, I come from the tech world and we have something called future proofing, where you not only look at what you need right now and what you need to do right now, you look to the future and figure out what you need to do to safeguard the future. And we really need to future proof these rules. And this rule, I don't think does it. I know that it's probably not their intention to possibly ban parts kits in the future. But if you look at it from the anti-gunners point of view, they can exploit that language in there to ban parts kits like Sten parts and stuff like that without having to go to Congress, without having to do a new rule. They can just reinterpret the rule that's on the books.
Well, here's the frustrating thing. And sometimes I think the reason why this stuff happens, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the part of the challenge is I get it. The president's developed this new department that's supposed to help fight for our Second Amendment rights. But the interesting thing about it is I don't recognize anybody from the gun rights community that's playing a significant role in that department. Do you?
There is a lot going on behind the scenes with actual gun rights people. I will say that. So I'm not going to say that there's no gun rights people involved because there are. They're just behind the scenes. And I know they've reached out to several very prominent Second Amendment attorneys to see if they want to come on board. But right now, those attorneys are like battling in court and they want to continue the battle in court. They don't trust the government for good reason, too. So they're going to stay where they are. But behind the scenes, there is a lot going on with pro Second Amendment people, pro Second Amendment attorneys, and pro Second Amendment groups working with the DOJ on certain things. Does it mean that everything that they're going to see eye to eye on everything? Of course not. You look at the NFA lawsuits going on with SBRs and SBSs and suppressors. The Justice Department and the gun rights groups do not see eye to eye on that. But there are other things like what happened in Denver today and yesterday where they do. And They are coming in. The DOJ is coming in strong for Second Amendment stance.
Mhm. Well, I mean, they're doing a good job when it comes to going after local municipalities, states, and localities. I think we've just now started to see them going after some of these federal rules. I thought it was going to happen, supposed to happen 60 days after, after he signed the proclamation. Oh well, better late than never. Um, but I'm just once again, I'm happy to finally see some stuff happening. I had on the program Harmeet Dillon back during SHOT Show, and one of the things she pointed out was not just that they were looking to change the rules, but they wanted to change the rulemaking process so that future administrations would have restrictions in terms of how they could go about changing the rules, in particular violating the Constitution. Have you seen anything like that happening? I mean, I don't see that necessarily in any of these rules that came out. Most of these seem to me to be just setting some rules right. But what do you think about some of the about that perspective? Them trying to change how the rulemaking process works.
Yeah, I talked to several people that are very, very high up in the government, and their answer basically was, we're going to do everything that we can and that we can legally defend. We can't go as far as we would like because we don't think we'll hold up in court, but we're going to go right up until that line. And that's why I don't see there are going to be major changes to the rulemaking process, because that has to come through Congress. And I don't think Congress is willing to change the rulemaking process that much. But they can make small little tweaks here and there, but I don't think it's going to be anything earth shattering or major.
Well, so what I'm thinking is there's a way to do it. It would be by utilizing the overturning of Chevron deference in order to do that. In other words, basically create a process that tells the legislature, that analyzes it, tells the legislature, you guys got to do your job and you have to be more specific, and can't expect the departments or the agencies to provide all of this interpretations and definitions and all of the things that are so fungible that anti-gunners use in order to, in my opinion, exceed executive authority.
Well, Chevron deference is dead now. There's no such thing as Chevron deference anymore because of the Loper Bright Enterprises case that went in front of the Supreme Court that
Mm.
got rid of Chevron deference. So we don't have to worry about Chevron deference in name. What we have to worry about them doing is applying the principles of Chevron deference and just not calling it Chevron deference, because we see that a lot. For example, the pistol brace rule, when the DOJ came back and said, yeah, we can't enforce the pistol brace rule, but we can enforce the principles of it under the NFA, which is absolutely wrong. Now, they've walked that back a little bit, but if you see when they do stuff like that, that's what I'm more worried about than Chevron deference in name.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right. We've definitely seen them do a lot of that. Just find a way to flat out ignore what it is that Supreme Court is telling them to do. And I guess last question, and you've seen plenty of instances where local municipalities and state governments have pretty much thumbed their nose at Bruin and at the Supreme Court. What do you think it's going to take for these municipalities and these some of the lower court justices to actually take the Supreme Court ruling seriously?
I think we're gonna have to see more cases at the Supreme Court. Maybe Duncan, for example. Duncan is a magazine case out of California. We need hardware cases to actually go in front of the Supreme Court. We need cases like Antioch and New York that challenges the CCIA. We need to see these cases get taken up by the Supreme Court so they can say, no, stop abusing Bruin. This is what it means. We weren't joking when we did Bruin, and now we're going to knock down your law. And judges don't like to be overturned. So if we start overturning these circuit court decisions and say, no, you got to apply Bruin to it, that is going to be better for us, and that will stop it in the future. But the key is the Supreme Court taking more and more cases. which they only take one or two Second Amendment cases a term, but we need to have those one or two Second Amendment cases be big. Right now, there's a case out of Hawaii that was heard in front of the Supreme Court, and that's going to knock down a lot of the vampire rule cases out there, and that will affect New York and everywhere else. And I think the Supreme Court's going to roll on our side in that one.
Right. Well, and I also like it how they also use that as an opportunity to send, once again, messages to lower courts about the importance of, I don't know, following constitutional law and the rulings of the Supreme Court.
Yeah, look what back after Heller, when DC was trying to play fast and loose with their stuff, there was a case brought by a guy named Brian Wren, and the Supreme Court kept on changing, not the Supreme Court, DC kept on changing the rules just a tad to block concealed carry permits. And then what the Supreme Court did is they stepped in and said, all right, we're just going to nullify all your carry rules until you come up with something that actually obeys what we do, what we said to do. And I think we need to see more of that, where they just come in and invalidate the law until they actually pass a law that's in line with the Supreme Court.
Exactly. Well, sir, thank you so much for coming on the program. Where can folks follow you and follow your work?
Amaland.com is where I do all my writing at, and I have a YouTube channel called John Crump News where I do videos every day.
Excellent, sir. Thank you so very much for coming on the program, and thank you for all that you do.
All right, thank you so much.
All right, folks. That's it for this episode of 2A News with Craig DeLuz. We will be back tomorrow or the day after with more news and commentary on the Second Amendment. Remember, this is a fight for our civil rights. We got to use them. We're going to lose them. Y'all take care.